Welcome to the Basics Today. My name is Scott Foley. I'm your host of the show. You know, when you think about family, it's one of those things where you think about what you can't live without, what you love so dearly, you hold so close to you. And that's how I think about my family. Not just on Thanksgiving or Christmas or any type of holiday that you celebrate together, but 365. You know, when I think of certain members of my family, it makes me think how blessed I am to have a family that actually care. And I know people out there listening to me, some people necessarily don't have family to turn to. And just know, you don't have to be blood related to have family that you love and care about, and they love and care about you. I think some people think that that needs to be the case, but it doesn't. When I think about my family in that case, I think about one person that really stands out, that's not blood related, but she's somebody I love so deeply, and that's my aunt. My Aunt Sandra. She's my aunt through marriage. But she feels like blood. It's basically blood. You know, she's somebody I've always looked up to my whole entire life, because her sister has been married to my dad basically my whole entire life. Couldn't have asked for a better person in my circle. You know, I think some of the things that she taught me about growing up was how to think for yourself. How to be happy with what you want, not what everybody else wants. And I think that really stood out to me for many years. When I was a teenager, in my 20s, now in my 30s, I think that's something that still is important to me today. And even in my 30s, she still lives the same way and follows the same practices. I think that's so important that she stayed so consistent over so many years, staying true to herself. And I love her so much. Not just for that, but just for many other things. I love her for being there for us, me and my brother. You know, and I think the biggest thing is when my dad and her sister got married, I love her so much for accepting me as her own family. Because see, I don't think people really understand what it really means when somebody accepts you as your own family when you're not blood. That's huge. It makes a difference how you feel. It makes a difference how you feel about that person. Because trust me, it's easy to accept family when you're blood, but it's not so easy to accept family when you're not blood. Well, then again, there's some people who are blood that they find it difficult to accept their family, so I shouldn't say that. But it is difficult to do that. She didn't have to do that, but she did it anyway. She didn't have to look at us as nephews, but she did it anyway. I think the one thing that I've always respected and prided myself with my relationship with her is she never called me an in-law, a step-nephew, or whatever you want to call it. Never. I've known her almost 30 years. And she's always treated me like her own for 30 years. Almost 30 years, I should say. Excuse me. She's given me so much inspiration in life to go out and make my own decisions and be happy with what I want. Trust me, that's important, especially to somebody like myself. She's one of the reasons that I got a lot of courage to even do this podcast, because I didn't until I thought about what she used to say to me and what she does by leading by example. That's how I got a lot of courage to do this podcast. That's why I'm doing this episode, so people know and understand out there what type of impact that she had on me. And I think this show, The Basics Today, really is a backbone of that. When I made this show, I thought about her. When I do these episodes in terms of how I feel about something, I think about her. And some days I think I don't know how to repay her back for that. So that's why I did this episode, this standalone episode, dedicated to my Aunt Sandra. I mean, somebody who's persevered in their own life. Somebody who's very strong. Not just internally, but externally too. Somebody who made it. I think that's the bigger story. Somebody who made it, who basically looks like a successful human being. Somebody that a young person like myself and like my brother, even younger, who can look to that person and say, I'm so proud of them. And I wish I could be like them. And I do. I wish I could be like my Aunt Sandra every single day. I don't see her often, but I think about her every single week of my life. She gives me strength, spiritual strength all the time. When things aren't going well, she gives me spiritual strength all the time. And I am so grateful for her every single day. You know, growing up, I didn't have a mother. I didn't. So that was something that it felt like it was a void. Her and her sister, my stepmother, really filled an empty void pain that I had. Pain of not being loved and stuff like that. My grandma did too, don't get me wrong. My grandma did too, but it was something about those two that really sad, especially my Aunt Sandra. She, I got a chance to do certain things with her, hang out with her and go places like, on trips and stuff like that as family. That really allowed me to bond, And I think that really meant more to me than anything. And with me being African American, and them, they're my aunt and my stepmother are Mexican, and they showed me so much love, and I felt more loved than I've been ever loved in my, life by them. Sometimes I have to stop and think, I feel like they're part of the reason why I got here today. to this point in my life because they kept inspiring me, they kept believing, and they kept pushing me to be the best that I could be. Especially my Aunt Sandra. There wasn't a depressed bone in her body. Every time I talked to her, she showed me all kinds of love. That love gave me inspiration. And that inspiration turned into fuel when things weren't going so well. That's why it's so special to me. I don't know what it is about her love specifically, but it really gave me a tool to really go out there and defeat life. When I felt like I was in a corner, or when I felt like I couldn't do something, especially when I went to college. When I left home and went to college in another state, I think that was the toughest thing to sort of take on. And I remember she would give me a hug, tell me good luck, and I love you and stuff like that. And I think those, even though they're short words, those words were so powerful when it came from her. To know that I had somebody in my corner. And I think it meant so much to me, and it was so special because it was from somebody who actually believed in me that wasn't a blood relative. Even though I consider her a blood relative. I do. She is a blood relative to me. Even though technically we're not blood biologically, I think spiritually in my heart and in my mind, she's blood to me. She's just as important, if not more important, than a blood relative. She's still doing well today. And I hope she hears this message. I've loved you since the day you and my stepmother stepped foot in my life. And I'm so glad that you guys chose to stick it out and really show me and my dad and my brother love over the course of 25 plus years. The commitment that you and your sister had showed me, my dad, and my brother, I think is what stood out to me. You always kept believing in us, no matter how bad stuff got. Even if our lives weren't going so well, you always kept believing in us. You always kept showing that love. You always were so happy and so proud that we were around. I think that was the biggest thing. Because I think before you guys came, I feel like me and my dad were at a crossroads. When you and your sister showed up, you guys filled an emptiness greater than I can ever imagine. Which was, you guys showed us so much love to the point where, well, at least for me, to the point where I always felt like I was the richest person in the world based on how much love you gave me. I really did. It's almost hard to describe. That's why I have a hard time sometimes speaking, because it's the love, the feeling of the love that you showed me and Brian, my brother, you know what I'm talking about, was very it was very pure, genuine. You could feel it. It was like a motherly love. You could feel it. And I always often say, somebody, now, and this is to the people, somebody doesn't necessarily have to be there every day for you to feel that love. They say the words, I love you, Or when you do see them and they give you a hug and and they see how happy you are to be around them, it really does make a difference. That's what she did. And Sandra, that's what you did. You gave us that. And I'll never forget that. Ever. I know Brian doesn't really talk all that much, but I'm sure he feels that too. And, I always wanted to say thank you for always being such a shining star in our family. Because I am. Every opportunity I get a chance to speak about you to other people, I am very, very proud. And I always say that, I love her so much. I do. And people, when you have that in your life, you make sure you tell other people as well as that person that you love them more than anything. Because it does matter. Thank you for listening to The Basics today. My name is Scott Foley.